Hi there and big welcome to a deck tech video for a blue-white ETB card drawing commander, namely Plagon, Lord of the Beach. So this is a starfish wizard for 3 mana, 0 free, that's important. When Plagon, Lord of the Beach enters, draw a card for each creature you control with a toughness greater than its power. It's going to count itself. This means that if you have a lot of creatures with a lot of toughness, you can make this into a big burst of card draw from the command zone. For example, we have cards like Draenei Magistrate, Soulless Jailer, another stacks creature with a lot of toughness, Spellskite, Ursa, Lord High Artificer, Grand Arbiter Augustine IV, Sunscape Familiar, that is reducing the casting cost of blue spells for you. A Feto Alchemist, you can use this creature to untap your lands or Manarchs or the One Ring. But we also have creatures like Preston. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 with White Illusion. So if we have Preston the Vanisher in play and we flicker our commander somehow, we're going to get a commander ETB, but we're also going to get an illusion here that's a copy of our commander that is going to generate a secondary ETB effect, and here the card draw is going to be pretty amazing. We also have Delny Streetwise Lookout, that is also going to double trigger whenever the commander ETBs. Felida Guardian, you can use the cat to flicker the commander, and then the cat is also going to add into the card draw effect from the commander's ETB effect. Glaring Fleshraker. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice, add this creature for 1 colorless mana. So if you're sitting there and casting a bunch of artifacts, you're building a lot of tokens, and these tokens are going to generate card draw effects as they have more toughness than power together with this commander. We have Giver of Runes, a 1/2. Polywog Prodigy, it's a good card on its own, and now it's going to synergize with the commander, so more to it. But what about winning the match? There are 2 potential combos that are quite clear here. The first one is the Hullbreaker combo. So with Hullbreaker Horror, a Mox Opal, Mox Amber, you make infinite mana, and then you're sitting there and replacing the Mox Opal by flickering your commander, and you have basically infinite mana and infinite card draw. Boom, you win somehow. Another option is Displacer Kitten. So this is already amazing inside this deck, obviously, because whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you're going to flicker your commander, which is gonna generate a lot of more card draw. So from this point, you should be able to win the match only by having a few creatures in play, your commander and Displacer Kitten, because you flicker your commander, you draw a bunch of cards, you cast spells from your hand to flicker your artifacts to generate mana back, to flicker your commander again with some of the spells you've drawn into, and then you just rinse and repeat until you've basically drawn your entire deck list. Another word in mention here in that case is Teferi Displacer Kitten combo. With a Mox Opal, Displacer Kitten and Teferi, you can generate infinite mana and infinite okay, you can't actually make infinite mana because you're going to deck yourself, but you're activating Teferi to return the Mox Opal back to your hand, drawing a card, recasting the Mox Opal, flickering Teferi, which means you're resetting him, tapping the Mox Opal or Mox Amber for mana, and then reactivating Teferi, returning it again, drawing a card and generating mana in the process. So basically you're generating a lot of mana and drawing your entire decklist. But what are we going to do with infinite mana and our entire decklist in our hand? Well, the finisher is honestly up to you here. I would personally love to recommend Blind Obedience. It's an enchantment that is good on its own, as it's making artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. But Blind Obedience also have Extort. So you can pay a white or black mana to make all of your opponents lose 1 life while you gain a life. So once you have your entire decklist in your hand and you have infinite mana, start casting the remaining cards and just extort on everything, and you will drain your opponent enough. Another option is Walking Ballista. With infinite mana you cast it infinitely and you have infinite damage. And then of course we can also win with Thassa's Oracle. But between Blind Obedience, Walking Ballista and Thassa's Oracle, Blind Obedience is the much better finisher. But we don't actually need Blind Obedience either. There's one more option too here. We've already mentioned Glaring Flesh Raker. It has a secondary text. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, Glaring Flesh Raker deals 1 damage to each opponent. So once we have established infinite mana and infinite flicker with Hullbreaker Horror, we can sit there and flicker a colorless creature infinitely with Hullbreaker Horror, generating infinite triggers from Glaring Flesh Raker, dealing infinite damage. That's a good finisher too. So how should this deck be operated? How should you pilot it? The big recommendation is that you begin by putting a few creatures into play with a toughness higher than power. So once when you actually cast the commander, it will probably be a little bit later in the game, like turn 3 or 4, but the draw will be bigger and have a bigger impact. If you cast it early in the game, you're drawing like 1 to 2 cards. If you're casting it later in the game, you draw 4 to 5 cards, and that's a big difference. But also, you probably have a lot of mana and a very low hand size at this point, which means that you're going to have a lot of untapped mana as you pass turn after drawing a lot of cards, as the CMC of this commander is only 3. You're going to draw into your counter spells, your Force of Wills, your Pact of Negation, your Mental Missteps, Force of Negation, Fierce Guardianship, etc. And then you will be more at the ready to deal with your opponents as you're passing the turn cycle, with mana at the ready, with a bigger burst of card draw. After this, you're going to try to synergize with the commander by flickering it, etc. to regain that burst of card draw, to dig through your deck, accumulate more value, more interaction, and more ways to continue flickering the commander basically, until you've basically sculpted a win, as we've already mentioned. But it's really cool how this commander is turning a Draenei Magistrate into a card draw effect. So you will be interacting with stacks cards, and the more stacks card like Draenei Magistrate, the better for you. You could say that playing stacks will synergize with your core game plan. As always, link in the description below of this video, which will take you to EDH Top 16, where you can scroll around and look at various different Plagoon Lord of the Beach decklists that have gone to tournaments and performed variously. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.